Supply.
Senator Aubrey McCarthy, please.
Minister, thank you for your opening statement and thank you for being here. And you have an unenviable job, and I genuinely wish you well. I'm looking at the housing crisis. I'm new to politics, as you know, and I'm seeing not just home buyers and tenants and not even the homeless who I've worked with for many years through Tiglin. I see it as an absolute national emergency, and I'm seeing teachers, medical staff, critical staff, they're leaving the country. The likes of IDA are at risk of not attracting companies because their employees can't get accommodation. So I genuinely feel this should be a national emergency. But not only that, I know the Housing for All plan, I know the Home of Your Own plan. I've looked at them, and I'd love, in my naivety, if all parties could work together to make a difference here. But I will say I'm delighted to see progress in areas of housing regulation. But I am concerned about the size of the studio when it's reduced to the equivalent of 2 car parking spaces. And I just hope we don't go back to the Liam Carroll shoebox type of idea, which is all along the quays. So I have a few questions regarding critical blockages. And one is about planning delays and where political interference and then also legal challenges delay housing beyond the extreme. And I've seen in other countries such as Denmark, the UK, and also it was used in the Dublin Docklands, where a publicly consulted development plan was decided at the very start, and it was legally binding, and that became the master plan. So that once it's adopted, then compliant development goes ahead, it progresses automatically without any interference at a later stage. Is that an option? Because as a minister, would you agree that effective housing delivery can only happen when planning puts people before politics? That's one question. Second is the population caps. In an area like my own, which is Kildare, I see millions of taxpayers' money being spent servicing lands and getting them ready for building, but then planners are blocked from progressing housing due to population limits in the area. So as Minister, I'm wondering, would you be able to lift those caps immediately where land is fully serviced, development ready, but also with the support of local planners? We had an issue in Kildare recently in an in-town site, an infill site, and they were told at pre-planning that there was no point in discussing it because they're over their numbers already. Third question I have is the viability and affordability, and you addressed Deputy Stanley regarding builders that they're not building, and it's because they can't get funding unless a scheme is viable, and then buyers can't afford a home unless prices come down. So I'm just wondering, as Minister, will you commit to reducing cost pressures, and that's taxes, that's levies, so homes can be seen as affordable and then deliverable? Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Senator. Just to say, I'm certainly treating it as a national emergency, our housing situation, our housing crisis that we're in, and that's why I'm making rapid decisions in terms of what we can do to address the housing crisis and to get as many houses and apartments built as quickly as possible. I agree planning should be before people. That's why we're reforming our planning development laws in this country, and I want to get to a situation where when a planner looks at an application, it's not a question of why should I say yes, but is there a reason I should say no? In other words, the assumption should be that planning should be permitted. In a lot of other countries, when you have a development plan done and it's been through public consultation and certain areas are marked, for example, for housing, it's an administrative process after that. But in Ireland, I find that the situation is it's like restarting the whole thing again through very complex planning permissions. So I want to simplify the entire process. So I do. In relation to the population caps, they're artificially high right across the country, in particular areas of high growth. I think because our existing national planning framework did not anticipate the population increases that we now have. So I'll be writing out to the local authorities in the next couple of weeks under the new national planning framework to ask them to significantly increase the amount of land that they are zoning in their areas for homes, and that should alleviate that situation in many of those areas where there's population caps and people are now seeing problems with planning as a result of those planning caps. In relation to taxation, for example, that is a matter for Minister Pascal Donoghue in the Department of Finance. It's not a lever that I have within the Department of Housing. We've done the levies exemption. We did it for a considerable amount of time. People are aware of it. People have taken advantage of it. I don't propose giving another levy exemption because I find with these that if you start rolling them over, they become, if you like, priced into the system. So when you do an exemption, I think it does have to be for a limited period of time and not repeated for a substantial time after that. So I don't intend to go in terms of levy exemptions again, certainly not in the near future.
But talking to a supplier recently in here, the average housing unit is selling at 375,000, and that's a national average. But the cost of that unit is 230,000, which isn't too far away from the housing, a home of your own idea. So I'm just wondering, how tight can we get it so that not only is it affordable, but it's viable for a builder as well?
So we do have restrictions, obviously, around competition law, around state aid law, around environmental law, and then, of course, you have fire safety and disability rights as well. Within that, I am making as many moves as quickly as possible, including the announcement today around specifications, to be able to reduce the cost on average per unit, and then therefore maximise the viability and then in turn the affordability for people to be able to buy them. But if we don't address the supply situation, nothing is going to change, and that is the definition of insanity.
Thank you, Minister.